Hey everyone, I'm Clue. So basically the majority of Bright Light spoilers are out. Now, we're not going to go through every single card, but we are going to talk about the ones that I think are interesting to some degree, right? So we'll cherry pick. But the main thing that I do want to zero in on, right, are the end cards, because we do know when the sort of expansion slot starts, right here at Shriek Razor, meaning that we do know the total number of cards, right? Generally speaking, the reprints that we've seen, there's probably one more reprint, maybe, so Farendel's Spring Tunic, and maybe Command and Conquer, right, given its use. I know they have printed a fair amount of cards to compete with it, right, in terms of Arsenal Disruption, but I think either that or Art of War are probably prime for a reprint, maybe, but we are probably going to discuss mostly the expansion slot, and then, yeah, cherry pick cards that, you know, I won't talk about, mainly the Evo stuff. I'm not going to go through every single common. I'm sure there's lots of people who've done, you know, commentary on the entirety of the set, but I don't think we're going to bother wasting that time, right? So the expansion slot, 1 in 15, we have lore cards, we have tournament cards, and we have key reprints, of which there is just Farendel's Spring Tunic so far, which is why I'm pretty sure 248 is going to be one. Now, it is interesting to me that the Quicken token is all the way down here, right? Whereas the Hyperdriver token is up here. I do like that the Quicken is its own spin now, right? That's pretty cool. I'd like to see more variation like that through sets, especially sets that see tokens and don't see any any special versions of the tokens. Hint, hint, Dust Till Dawn, right? Not having any of them in foil, even though they're not double-sided in Dust Till Dawn. But yeah, so it is nice to see some old art on the tokens. Starting to see that, so it's good. Yep, so 248, most likely another reprint in my books, and then in terms of lore cards, I am curious, right, where that comes into play in regards to these cards. Because I don't think any of these scream lore. I guess potentially just the ones with the text would count as lore cards, right? So we have Wax Off, we have Smashing Performance. There might be a couple more, but it seems weird to me, right, that we've expressed the expansion slot as this 3 categories, and what we have gotten is not really substantial, right? So expand the story within the wider world of Wraith, right? 1, 2, 3, maybe, out of, how many cards is it? 1, 2, 8, 14, 15? 15 cards, 1 in 15. Interesting. So 1 in 15 for 15 cards. But yeah, so maybe 3 lore cards, if that, and mostly just tournament cards. Again, I was expecting something fanciful, like special art cards, just something collectible, not something that is basically just this line. And then in terms of key reprints, again, I was expecting a greater amount, because advertising it as this, while interesting and I guess sticking with the 1 in 15, I think would have better just been done if the Farendel's Spring Tunic was just the quintessential spot reprint like they have been doing, right? So just stick it with the legendaries as a, you know, blank, non-special version. But yeah, interesting to me. Overall, I think it's a bit of a letdown, right? Given the advertisement, I would have liked to see a larger segment of cards overall. But again, we sort of touched on this being such a mech-focused set, really catering towards either mech enthusiasts or new players. So going all in on mech, even in where the generic cards might have been, is fine. It's just, again, right, this is a big tagline. It's one of the first things you read about Bright Lights, and this is what we get, right? Just a handful of cards, which is fine. That, again, suits this line. But in terms of key reprints, such as Farendel's Spring Tunic, well, it's kind of just the Farendel's Spring Tunic to me at the moment. You never know. Again, 248 is probably primed to be another reprint. I'm curious, though. I haven't counted the legendaries that we've seen so far, right? Whether or not the expansion slot counts towards the 7. I assume it will. I would be a bit iffy on the Farendel's Spring Tunic. Is there a way for me to filter? Doesn't look like... Yes. No? I can do sets. Can we do legendary? Where's rarity? Foiling rarity. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Right. Speaking of which, we'll probably talk about really? So then I have to go sets, bright lights, and the B. Done. Yeah, so far we have 7. If we include Shriek Razor, Warband, and the Spring Tunic, meaning that there are 2 more available. We know 000 is obviously the Fable, but yeah, curious. Not sticking with the full art, right? Again, to me, it would have been nice if all Cold Foil cards are full art, right? And then all Rainbow Foils are the normal. That way there's another layer of separation between the two. But you never know, right? Adaptive plating might be extended art. Although, what, they just expand it? Because I'm not sure what would eventually go down here. Shriek Razor, I mean, you could just have greater claw marks. It's another piece of art that doesn't really work extended, right? Unless it was fully moved down or something like that. But I know, I personally feel, again, just making sure there's a bigger distinction between Cold Foil and Rainbow Foil is somewhat important, other than pull rate, right? Because, again, the argument of, look, well, a lot of cards do better in Rainbow Foil. This in Rainbow Foil, I'm going to tell you straight away, is going to look better than Cold Foil, right? Because Cold Foil, I mean, they might be able to get away with the neon lights, but in all honesty, I'm assuming it's going to be the helmets, maybe the jackets, maybe the little extra bits, but overall, because of the background, I think this screams significantly better in Rainbow Foil, whereas counter that, right, the warband will look significantly better in Cold Foil. But yeah, so that's the legendaries. We will go back to Bright Lights, stick back on with the placeholders, and in terms of cards, have we gotten anything new? I feel like I've already talked about Sonata, right? I don't think we've gotten anything new. I think all the spoilers so far have just been Bright Lights. So yeah, let's start going through a few of them. One, I do want to talk about this, because this is fantastic. I think Cheyenne actually has some proper contention for being meta viable now, right? So through Symbiosis Shot and some of the other specializations, you can really go into mech for your resource generation, right? And then Guardian and Runeblade at Frost as your main sort of setup. That way you have Stall and Fatigue, you have Control, and then you have heavy hitting attacks through Guardian. And I think in that sense, the matchup works really well. The fact that you have Crippling Crush, Starstruck, and now Sonata Phantasmia, right, is going to be great. So you have to pitch 12 to get this off. But here's the thing, with the Symbiosis Pistol, Shot, I was close, right? The fact that you can add counters, you can, again, search for the Teklo cores, right? They give you 2 resource every turn. You can amp them up, give them 1 extra steam counter, which is fantastic. The fact that you can get them to last 1 extra turn is huge and makes a lot more cards playable in Cheyenne. And I'm pretty sure we've seen some other specializations that sort of feed into that too. So yeah, super excited for that, right? Goodbye flail, goodbye gimmick, and just going with a proper control style Cheyenne. So I do think she, again, has some actual contention for being viable now, right? And we'll probably do something with that deck once Bright Lights comes out. Now, we already looked at Banksy. In fact, I was going to say Banksy was the main pick for Cheyenne, right? As long as there's some items with Crank. But then the fact that we have now seen all the cards as Mechanologist, no item support whatsoever for generics, no way for anyone else to take advantage of these cards. In that aspect, again, I'm a little disappointed. I would have liked to see some level of generics, some level of crossover, some level of desire for everyone else in the set. But it's fine. Again, it's self-contained. If they keep this format, shrink it, and ramp up production, right? Have more sets, have quicker release cycles, and rein it in a bit more. That would be my biggest opinion. But it does work. Again, moving away, giving the secondary market back to the community, basically, right? Completely aborting any contention with that, because unless you're interested in mech, there's no way you're opening boxes to find the expansion slot, right? 1 in 15 to find those cards, even to find playsets, it's going to be a nightmare, right? Just use the secondary market, which is great. Again, Bright Lights is new player friendly. It's still a great model to me. It's just going to take some getting used to overall. Now, let's start going through the new cards. Singularity, right? We can't see it all yet. Transform your hero into this, so it's like an Exodia. I think that's the big argument. It is interesting, but we'll probably have to wait and see. I assume it's going to be the flip side, like Levia. I'm pretty sure we don't have access to it just yet. Yeah, no, hasn't been spoiled. So I think for me, the cards I mainly want to talk about are the different Evo sets, right? Mainly the base sets, definitely the legendaries, right? So we'll go Hyper X. Actually, this is curious. This is probably going to be another Mechanologist legendary. It has to be, surely. Again, some sort of generic legendary, right? That gives crank to items. That would have been all you needed. And then potions become super more viable. But I digress. So Hyper X3. Whenever you banish a Hyperdriver from boosting, put it under this. Once per turn, when Hyperdriver is put under this, if there are 3 or more Hyperdrivers under this, draw a card. So definitely the legendary go-to for Max. Right, self-explained, it's basically in his ability. And you can basically just boost into your next Hyperdriver, stack it up nice and easy, get some extra draw. Then we have Adaptive Plating. Modular, so this may be equipped to any equipment zone, and you can pay to equip it to another equipment zone. Galvanize, when this defends, you may destroy an item you control. If you do, this gets +2 until the end of turn. Now, the big thing that I was seeing was people saying, you know, equip. So you burn through an Evo, right? You then equip the base to a different slot and move this around. I'm curious about that, right? Because I haven't seen any of them yet, right? But I assume there are ways to pull these out of your side deck. I think that's also another interesting thing because your side deck isn't, well, it's not infinite and it's quite limited, especially in Blitz, right? You could probably run one set and then a few other choice cards. Because remember, you have to take deck techs, right? For certain matchups. If you want to play competitive, you kind of need to take deck techs. So having a desire to have X amount of equipment in your sideboard is a fun mechanic, right? That then you have to balance around in terms of the player, right? LSS have done a great job balancing around it. Again, competing with deck techs for certain matchups. Okay, then we have the Cogworks base set. So we'll probably just look at one because I'm assuming the same effect goes across all of them. So this is remove a steam counter from this, shuffle a mechanologist attack action card from your banish zone into your deck, activate this ability only if you boosted this turn. No destroy, so that's great. I'm curious, when this is equipped, put a steam counter on it. Whenever a mechanologist item, no, so there's a distinction, item, right? Because, right, starting off with one extra steam counter and everything would have been a bit too busted. So in terms of that, this is probably the dash setup, right? Because steam counters, from what I remember, crank and boosting, and then evos, they were the three distinctions. So I assume Teklo is going to be the Teklo set, although the Teklo set is not that great, right? In fact, I think in comparison, you just run Cogworks over all of these, because the Protobase does nothing. The Teklo is one block, but then Blade Break. So you probably main deck the Cogworks set, or a few pieces at least, and then you run the Teklo in your sideboard, right, to transition into. Or even start with the Teklo so you can defend and then swap to the Cogworks. But overall, Cogworks is definitely strongest. Interesting that it's not above common. I still think these are probably going to hold value as cold falls, which is another thing to sort of discuss, because just like Dusk Till Dawn, we have 3 sets of basic gear, although they do serve a far greater function than the ones in Dusk Till Dawn. But overall, I think the Cogworks is going to be the most desired because it actually has a functional effect in comparison to these two. Again, I would have liked to see more contrast, right? Have the base set as tokens and then have 2 or 3 that are actually usable for 3 distinct activities. Again, they don't have to feed into these specific heroes, but have some level of playability in certain matchups, right? Have Arcane Barrier, like we're talking about. I mean, Tear Or is from Metrics, but the Cogworks seems pretty cool. What next? Evos, probably just look at, well, no, we have to go through all 4 pieces to check out the set effects. But how many do we have? We have Steel Soul, we have Breaker, we have Engine, right? And then we have Sentry, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's probably another set as well. Man, how many sets are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 Evo sets. Wow. 7 Evo sets, 4x7 is already 28 cards, right? If you're just running full Evos in Teklo Vison, that's going to be an interesting concept. Because again, you just stack them all on top of one another, right? And then you get to make use of these different effects. So if you have a base set equip, I mean, we've seen the Steel Soul Memory before, haven't we? Basically, this is the main set for Teklo Vison. I think it has the strongest effect, right? How do we want to do this? Do I just read through all 28 of them? Yeah, sure, why not? We've got time. It's going to be a long one. Okay, so when this transforms from or into an Evo with a different name, your hero gets +1 intellect. I'd almost just run all the helmets because having 1 intellect is great. If that Evo is a hero, instead trigger this twice, so mainly feeding off of the Exodia Singularity for Teklo Vison. It's a specialization, so it only works at Teklo Vison. Right, do they all have that? No, so this is boost. This is nothing. Right, so this is just your basic one. Rarity, that's probably a good way to sync them. This is probably another basic one. Yeah, common, common, common. So this is probably another rare set. Then we have common, common, common. Right, so 2 majestic, 2 rare, 3 common sets. Interesting. When this transforms, different name, gain resources. So up to 6, that's pretty good. Right, again, just cycling back and forth. Transforms with a different name, you may put an attack action card with 6 from your graveyard into your deck. 5th from the top. If that Evo is a hero, instead trigger this twice. 5th from the top. That's going to cause drama, I can guarantee you. Right? 5th from the top. Right? Imagine that in a competitive matchup. someone easily sliding in 2 cards from the graveyard, depending, again, how it's viewed, or fifth. Fifth with sleight of hand is insane. Curious about that. Fifth, that's such a weird thing to me, especially, again, in a competitive setting, to watch for and just scrutinize. Yikes. When this transforms from or into, blah, 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 gain 1 action point, so up to 2 action points if your hero is an Evo. Well, I would say this is probably the strongest set so far, but, we're going to read. So this is Hyperdrive, so this is definitely Max's set. So if your base head transform into blah, 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 X Hyperdrives you control. No, transform it and X Hyperdrives you control into this. What's it do for the X? There's so much to read. That's the only downside of this, right? All 4 of these. If you do, the next time you would be dealt damage, prevent twice X. So that is pretty tanky, right? And this is a big thing. Mechanologist now has great access to defensiveness, right? It's interesting. They're definitely going to rise up the ranks. Imagine if we lose all of them to Living Legend, right? In like 1 or 2 seasons. Same sort of concept. What do we get for twice, though? It's still just prevents. Did I go into the same one? No, so prevent. Next time you deal damage, prevent. But it's just the bottom effect that's different. Okay. So we have, whenever you boost, you may destroy a card under this. If you do, shuffle 2 attack action cards from your banish zone into your deck. So they get great defense and they get increased longevity. Interesting. I understand you're putting out a lot of items, but that seems super strong to me, right? Again, being able to now play highly more defensively and then also be able to recover off of the equipment. And then the fact that, unlike, the majority of legendary equipment that is either slow and perpetual, so like the Fairy Nail Spring Tunic, or, a strong effect that is usually one-off, this can be continuously used or cycled into something else. Interesting. With the downside being it comes out of your deck, but the fact that it comes out of your deck also makes combos a bit easier to get off too. Then we have, whenever you boost, you may destroy a card under this if you do gain resources. Would you run this in anyone else with the fact that you don't have instant access to hyperdrivers? That's the big question. Probably not, right? So even in Teclovison, you'd probably exclude this one, even though you're trying to stack up a lot of Evos. Then we have, whenever you boost, destroy a card under this. If you do, the attack gets +2 damage. Interesting. And the prevention doesn't cost the cards, right? So it just floats the defense for a turn, and then you can, every time, cycle through them and burn cards, burn the resources. And with Max, you are generating the hyperdrivers most likely, not just playing the ones from your deck. Interesting. Supporting all 4 is going to be hard, but even just getting one of them off seems pretty strong. Then whenever you boost, you may destroy a card under this if you do create a Quicken token. So we have Go Again. We have basically, right, recycle, reusable, strong legendary effects. Snapdragon Scalers, whenever you want, if you have more than one hyperdriver. Goliath Gauntlet, obviously. A superior Fairy Nail Spring Tunic. And then recycle cards. That's stronger than any of the headpieces we have so far. But it is from your banish zone. This is also super strong in probably Data Doll, right? Although getting the hyperdrivers becomes the issue. Unless there's other ways to generate hyperdrivers. Still, it's cool, right? Definitely very niche. Again, they have put a lot of passion into this set. Right, then we have the Command Center. So these do have Blade Break, so if you defend, it's gone. If this defender destroys it. So I assume you just destroy this, right? You don't destroy the base head, which is interesting, because then you can have layers to layers. When this is equipped, transform and equip. The terminology is also going to do a lot of people's heads in, I think. Because when this is equipped with Steam Counter on it, so transforming back into it, does that count as equipping it again? Probably, well, obviously not, but yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of confusion. This is definitely some high-level concepts to digest. Once per turn, instant destroy card under this. Your next weapon attack this turn gets, when this hits, draw a card. So the fuel for this is just your base equipment or any other Evos you have equipped, right? And then again, you get strong legendary effects, basically. Or you get stable effects, I should say. Staple effects that are more uses than your normal equipment, with the cost being you have to A, find it, and B, spend the turn setting up and equipping it. Is the downside worth the benefit? That is the question. I would say, yeah, I think the benefit is great on these. Obviously damage, and then this is going to be some form of go again. You may attack an additional time with target weapon this turn. Right, the big one that benefits is probably Banksy, right? Activate this ability only if you've cranked. When this hits, put a steam counter on an item you control with crank. Yeah, that's gonna cycle pretty well. Remove a steam counter, so the fact that you have to have steam counters on this, giving it more attack, doesn't really matter. What other weapons could you use with this? I think Talishare is still the only generic weapon, right? And getting more hits out of that ain't that great. And then the other pistols also cost steam. We've got the leveler. Duh. They all feed just into this, right? Especially because of the minus to cost and the fact that you can get with go again. So you have 3 equipped and you can just cycle into more attacks. Yeah. Interesting. Sentry, when it's equipped, transform it, and this is just defense. Okay, so this is just fuel, right? So you go Evo Sentry into Evo Command Center, right? Into the better Evos. And you just burn this and your base. And I assume you can still turn these even though they're not the base set, right? Because this says base head. Again, so much confusion. Yeah, transform Evo into this. No, if you have base arms equipped, transform into this. So if you get rid of the base arms, right, through something like the Evo stuff, the Evo smooth ball, you can't then transform it, right? Because it's gone, and they all have that requirement of having the base stuff equipped. Interesting. Yeah, this is ripe for confusion for a lot of players. I mean, even I'm a little confused from it. Okay. Dartadol. Okay, dashes, right? So, once per turn instant, just draw a card. Under this, draw a card. So, at least these are most likely one use, unless you stack them in the correct order, which is obviously sticking the Evo Sentry stuff over, but then you can't rely on draw to be able to use it over and over again. But you definitely don't want to destroy the base set, right? Unless it's do or die. So we have draw, we have steam counter, we have put an item from your hand into the arena, right? Off the 1 cost, or go again because it's instant. Destroy card, create a quicken token. Yeah. So again, the stable effects of each slot, just with varying costs and reusability. Then we have this set. This is just another generic set. When this is equipped, you may banish a card from your hand if you do draw a card. Right, and then that feeds into a lot of the other mechanics, a lot of mechanologist normal mechanics. I mean, that with Dartadol also seems pretty great, right? You just banish cards. If it's an item, goes straight into play. Is that correct with Dartadols? Can't remember if it has to be the one from the top of your deck or if it's any card that's banished. I think it's any card, actually. And then same thing. Getting resource when you equip it. +1 damage, and then go again. Yeah. And the fact that, again, you go into this, into that, and you get more use out of it than the cards, the equipment that every other hero has access to. Oh, it's going to be interesting. I think it's too powerful in all honesty, versus the downside of it. You having to draw into it, it being minus from your deck, right? They are just pretty strong effects. But then again, the weapons that you have access to. But there are ways for mechanologists to hit really hard as well. Yeah. Definitely going to see some uptick in mechanologist. All right, we will go through majestics, I think. I'm not going to bother with rares, right? Yeah. Okay, so we have Annihilator Engine. If you have 1 or more Evos equipped, this gets when this hits a hero, destroy all cards defending this. Destroy all cards defending this, but that's after it hits. Isn't that kind of pointless? Destroy all... Oh, no. So equipment. Right. That's the big upside. This destroys equipment that defends it if it lands. Right. And then overpower for 3. Cost 3 less is pretty great. And then 4 is +3 damage. Oh, that's the wrong spot. Terminator Tank we've seen. War Machine. Same thing. Destroy all cards in their arsenal. That's good. And then... So the same buffs for having Evos. But we have destroy all cards in their arsenal. They discard a card and destroy all cards defending. Primarily equipment is what you're going after. Interesting. Pulse Wave we've seen. I think we've seen that. I think we've seen that as well. I think we've already gone through them. Then we have Grinding Gears. Crank. This enters the arena with a steam counter. At the start of your turn, destroy this unless you remove a steam counter from it. Action, pay 0. Target hero destroys the top card of their deck. So you get 2 turns out of it? No. Yes. You get, well, no, because it go again. Either way, you can either use it straight away if you crank it, or you can use it the next turn. Interesting. I would love to have these in Melody, right? You just pop them all out, crank, and then destroy them with cash out. And it's actually timed in that scenario too, because cashing out, you'd have to find cash out straight away. Otherwise, you have to destroy because it's Steam counter. But then you have, if you had access to this, you could extend it. I can see some of the lines, right? Evo, crank. You kind of want to run this in max then, right? Because crank is good. No? Crank is good for you? Yeah, I'm already getting confused. What else do we have? So we are at Grinding Gears, Prismatic Lens. Crank centers the arena with a Steam counter, blah, blah, blah. Same thing. Once per turn instant, 0, reveal the top card of your deck, put a mechanologist item of the same color from your banish zone on top of your deck. 1 card recycle. You don't want to play it early. That's the other thing. So items are good because obviously they're balanced. You can't block with it. So it is a dead draw unless you make use of its effects straight away. And then we have Quantum Processor. Sends arena, same thing. 0, put a mechanologist item with the cost 0/1 from your hand into the arena. Also interesting. You definitely don't want to go overboard with the items. Stasis Cell, put this on the bottom of its owner's deck, choose an equipment. It can't defend this turn, go again. That seems good, right? When the centers or relieves the arena, activated abilities of target equipment can't be activated until the end of its controller's next turn. Activated abilities of target equipment. Yeah, so it's the same thing. Wait, what? No, it's not. When this enters or leaves the arena, so if you have a different way to make it leave the arena, you can still make use of its effect. Then its action has go again anyway. So this would only count for... You'd get to trigger it off of item destruction, would you not? Because it still leaves the arena. Interesting. So either you use it, or even if your opponent destroys it, right? You get to cause the effect. Tick-tock clock. Crank. If this enters the arena, Steam counter, right? With a Steam counter. Start your turn, destroy this, and it deals 1 damage to you unless you remove a Steam counter from it, so you can have it around for 1 turn. When a mechanologist attack action card you control hits a hero, destroy this and up to 2 other items in the arena. This deals X damage to them, where X is the number of items destroyed this way. Up to 2 other items. So 3. So it can do up to 3 damage. That does not seem great to me. Right? That seems like very minor damage for the setup. But then you could use that to activate Stasis Cell. Right? But it's your turn anyway, so you have the action. Fuel Injector, instant, put this on the bottom of his own deck, gain 1 resource. And you can just cycle it over and over again. And it has instant, right? So the first time you put it in, obviously can't, but then you can make use of it whenever you want. Great. Medkit, again, these items to me, these 3 here, I think. I haven't actually read what this one is, but I've read Medkit. Would have been great as generics, I think. Right? It's just like tech items that any hero could have got from Bright Lights. Medkit, so put this on the bottom of its own deck, gain 2 life, and then Steam Canister, put this on the bottom of its own deck, put a Steam counter on an item you control with crank. Yeah, so not that one, but these 2, right? Seem right up the alley of just giving it to everyone. They look neat, but again, there's nothing here for me, because I'm not going to play mech, so I think we're just going to fish for more Majestics. Hyper Scraper. As an additional cost to play this, banish X items from your graveyard. When it stacks, it gains plus X. If 3 or more hyperdrives were banished to play this, gain 6 resources, and this gets go again. Wow. So you can, if you banish the hyperdrivers, right, this is your finisher for max. You gain 6, meaning it does an extra 3, so it does 5 straight away, plus any cards you then pitch into it. Right, every blue is 1 extra damage-ish. Well, 1.5, right? It's not super strong, but there are other ways to also gain resources off your items. So I can see this being a huge, heavy hit. But I also feel like there's easier ways to do heavy damage with Mechanologist. Scrap Trader. So Scrap, as an additional cost to play this, you may banish an item equipment from a graveyard and gain 2 resources from, well, there you go, this into that straight away, right? So you can just scrap, but it doesn't have go again, does it? And you can get up to 4 resources from it. So you really have to crank something into this. But then you have to crank something with go again. I'm not seeing the lines because I don't think that many things have go again. Right, crank is the only way to give them go again. And then scrap hopper, more ways to scrap. Have we gotten anything where we have ways to put items back in, put equipment back in. I have not seen anything. Heist. Boost. When this hits hero, you may put an item with a cost 0/1 from any banish zone into the arena under your control. Interesting. So either yours, if just in your soul matchup, or sometimes you'll be able to steal some items. Then we have Moonshot. Play this only if you've boosted this turn. It's an additional cost to play this. Destroy X hyperdrives you control. When it's stacked, it gets +3 damage for each hyperdrive you destroy this way. If it does 10 or more, it gains overpower. So you'd have to destroy 3 still. Yeah? That's the only way, unless you've got some other ways to buff its stack, in which case you can probably get away with 2. And then it gains overpower. But it does cost X, and you can only destroy half of that. Right? So you'd have to pitch. So if you pitch 2, you can destroy 1. You pitch 4, you destroy 2. You have to pitch 6. But then 6 for 12 damage and overpower. Right? That seems pretty decent. But then you have to have the hyperdrivers as well. Steel Street Hoons. Boost. If an item control has been destroyed this turn, it gets +2 damage, galvanized. So that's another big mechanic that we probably haven't talked about. When this defends, you may destroy an item you control. If you do, this gets +2. Right, so there's lots of ways to bump up your block by feeding your items. Again, I would have just loved to see more item usage for everyone, right? Like, these are cool concepts. I wish everyone could take advantage of them. Twin Drive. Boost. So as additional cost to play this, you may banish the top card of your deck. This is a mechanologist card. This gains go again. But gains go again. So they're not action points, so you only get the benefit of 1, right? That's my understanding. But you do get to boost twice in Data Doll, right? You get to sift for 2 more items. So that's definitely a good card for her. Target hero chooses X equipment they control. Then you choose one from among them. That hero must defend your attacks this turn with that equipment if able, but does have a high cost. Right? This hero must defend your attacks this turn. All attacks with that. Right, so you can definitely cause some destruction. That's good. System failure. Remove all steam counters from target equipment, items, or weapons. If 2 or more steam counters are removed this way, deal 2 damage to its controller. So this is the counter tech, right? So you run this in your Evo deck for the other matchups, for the steam matchups. Systems resets. Banish X mechanologist items you control with cost 0/1, then return them to the arena under their owner's control. So you get to refresh all the steam counters, right? And then you can take advantage of stuff like this, right? Because it's as they enter. Yeah, as they enter. Yeah, interesting. Definitely seeing the 3 core segments again. So not just the heroes, but also in the equipment. But I do like the fact that you can sort of, have some usage of certain cards in all 3 across different sort of setups, right? You can still do an Evo style max and still take advantage of the hyperdriver stuff. Fabricates. Equip a base equipment, there you go, with Proto in its name from your equipment, so you can only take the shitty set, right? Yeah, so this is your sideboard, the basic token one, right? And that's how you can extend. You can only have 3 and 2 in Blitz, right? So you only need 2 pieces. Evo permanents you control get +1 defense. Put this under an Evo permanent you control. There you go, it fuels some of the destruction effects, and you may banish an Evo from your hand if you do draw a card. Well, so this says choose 2, doesn't not say you can't pick the same one twice. So I don't know what the ruling is in Flesh and Blood. I assume it's going to be you have to pick 2 unique ones. So re-equip and then any of the other ones are strong. Yeah, so this is definitely an auto-include, to me at least. I'm curious to see what the financials are going to be, right, given the demand, because mech will be the sole demand, but there are lots of cards in here that, mech will want. Do we have any more M's? I think we're done, right? Yeah, and we haven't seen any new expansion slot cards. Yeah, okay, so we'll leave it there. Interesting overall, right? Curious to see what the Fable will be and how it sort of fits in everything. It's obviously going to be mech only, right? Probably some pitchable, and then, or even just pitch equip it to cards or something like that. Pitch, create steam counters, something like that. Pitch crank, maybe. Or it might, it might even be an item. Yeah. Some sort of power core, probably the big power core talked about in Teklo Veasan's little story. Even though that is fueling his singularity form, I still think that's probably going to be the 000. Again, love the passion, love the design, love the setup for future products, but mechs aren't my thing. So yeah.